People you talking about, they spent money on white women. They set up bars and they went playing pool and golf for $1,000 a hole, and they were known to make millions and millions when there wasn't no high taxes, and they were not hindered by white America. They were allowed to see white America has completely closed all the doors on me. I'm not allowed to work in America, out of America. I was stopped right in my prime just when I started making money. So you can't compare me with nobody like Joe Lewis or nobody.
If you are black, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, and if you are poor, this system is rigged and it is right to the core, and we gonna unbreak it. That's it. And that's all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, and we have a very interesting episode to get to here with you today. So I'm really excited to talk about this because I think it's a really important topic on the left right now. And so let's delve right in. Let's dive right in. So what we have going on, as you can see from the title, what we're discussing here today, there has been a riff on the left, and it is causing quite a stir. And so just want to take a look at what is this stemming from? Who are the key actors, key players in this, and then also after we take a look at that, I just want to get to my thoughts and commentary analysis on this, and what I would push for as a black socialist and a black leftist. So let's get right to it. All right. So we got how this all started. Essentially, Jimmy Dore came out. I think he was just doing one of his shows, and he during one of his shows, Jimmy Dore of the Jimmy Dore Show on YouTube, formerly of TYT, he was he made a suggestion about how the squad and the progressives in Congress could exercise their power right now in this moment and begin to actually push the Biden administration to the left. And so let's take a quick look. First, we're going to take a look at Jimmy Dore actually just explaining his position. So we're going to take a look. This is an appearance that Jimmy Dore made on the Hill, rising on the Hill with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. So this is Jimmy Dore talking about what he believes the progressives in Congress need to do in order to push the fight for Medicare for all forward and push a left agenda, starting right now today. So let's take a look at what he suggested, and then we'll look at some of the response from folks. All right.
Progressives are always told that they don't know how to.
Sorry.
Progressives are always told that they don't know how to use power. They don't know how to grab power. Well, they don't have power, right? But the progressives who are elected in Congress right now, I mean the real progressives, not the 100 people in the Progressive Caucus. I'm talking about the squad, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Ro Khanna, people like that, Ayanna Pressley, people who are actually have progressive policies. Now they have leverage. What's their leverage, Jimmy? Well, Nancy Pelosi needs their vote for speaker, right? Because the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi performed so poorly that they lost seats in the House under Donald Trump. So now the margin is really small, right? So just a handful of progressives could say, Nancy Pelosi, we're withholding our vote from you for speaker unless you bring up Medicare for all for vote on the floor. That's our deal. Now it's up to Nancy Pelosi. Do you want to risk your speakership, or do you want to make sure we have a vote on a basic human right? This is very doable. Everybody who I've said, even my detractors are saying this is a great idea. So this is a good idea. This could actually work. We all are upset that progressives never flex their muscle, never use their power. You know, the worst abuse of power, Crystal, is not using the power you have to fight for people. So right now, they have the power. They could do this. This is the only time in the next 2 years that the progressives are going to have any leverage whatsoever. And I'm begging them to use it right now to make Nancy Pelosi bring a vote for Medicare for all. It is time to get people on the record. Some people say, well, it wouldn't pass. Well, then the American people who are overwhelmingly for Medicare for all need to know exactly who's against it, because people who are running on Medicare for all get elected. We need to have a marker right now, and we're in the middle of a deadly pandemic. This is politics 101. You know who knows how to use their leverage? The Freedom Caucus knows how to use their leverage. Right wingers. In fact, the last time Nancy Pelosi was up for the speaker election, the conservative Democrats extracted concessions from her. She actually had to move to the right for them.
Right.
So all I'm asking is for the progressives to do the exact same thing that any political body would do. They would make sure they got something for their support from Nancy Pelosi. And it's really easy. A vote for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, I think it's an easy thing to do.
Well, and that's what we've seen in the polling is, first of all, you've had tens of millions of Americans lose their employer-sponsored health insurance.
All right, so that was Jimmy Dore there, just speaking his part on that. You know, that was, you know, his suggestion here is that the progressives in Congress right now, they are, you know, the squad there's 4 of them in the squad, plus Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, Cori Bush, you know, they Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, they have a block of one, supporters for Medicare for all, and what I would consider actual leftists in Congress. And that block of progressives is actually larger than the margin in the House between the Democrats and the Republicans. This margin in the House, the Democrats with Biden at the top of the ticket managed to lose seats in this last general election. And what we have now is actually the narrowest margin in the House since, from what I understand, the 19th century, like 1880 or something, was the last time we had a margin in the House this thin. So that's what the Democrats were able to secure under with Trump at the helm. The Democrats still managed to lose seats even under Trump and all of his horrible handling of the pandemic. The Democrats still managed to lose seats, and this is a chance now for them to use to leverage the fact. And he talked about leverage there, and I think leverage is something that we're going to have to keep coming back to. Real quick, I just want to say what's up to my folks from the Vanguard. I saw your coverage on this, and it blew up, and just congrats on that. You deserve all of that, and so really love to see that. Love to see, our fellow leftist comrades doing big things. And so shout out to Zach and Gavin from the Vanguard. You can check out after this, not right now. We need all the views we can get right here, right now. But after this, you should check out their coverage of this as well, because they covered this topic as well. And like I said, it blew up. Last I looked, it had like over 8,000 views on it. Dope stuff. Congrats on hitting 1,000 subs too, guys. I saw that too. Congrats to the Vanguard. So on the topic of leverage, and that's something we're going to keep coming back to during this conversation, is just what is our understanding of leverage, and how are progressives using in the left? How are we using our leverage, the little bit of leverage that we have? How are we actually exercising that power? So, Dore suggests here that the progressives leverage that voting block that they have to threaten Nancy Pelosi's speakership. The House has to vote on who's going to be the Speaker of the House. Everybody in the House gets to vote, Republicans and Democrats, who's the Speaker of the House. It goes to the party in power always, because they have the most votes. They just vote as a block, and they vote in whoever their de facto leader is. But at this point, since there's a larger block of progressives than that margin in the House, they could actually threaten to, tank Nancy Pelosi's speakership if she does not at least, put forth, agree to put forth a vote on the House floor. The Speaker of the House is the one who gets to control which bills get voted on. So they're saying, listen, you have to guarantee us that we're going to get just a measly vote in the House. Now, let's be real here. A vote in the House does not make Medicare for all exist. It's very unlikely to pass through the Senate, especially if it's a Republican controlled Senate. But even if it was a democratically controlled Senate, it would still, if it was 50-50 with the tying vote from Kamala Harris as vice president, it still wouldn't be, there's still enough Democrats there that it's unlikely to pass through the Senate. And even if it passed through the Senate, it could be vetoed by Donald Trump or Joe Biden, who said that he would veto Medicare for all if it ever touched his desk. Okay. So all they're asking for here is what's essentially sums up to a symbolic vote, but a vote that's not just symbolic, because honestly, what Jimmy Dore talked about is very important, that it would actually, I believe, and Jimmy Dore believes here, that it would put pressure on the representatives in the House, the Democratic representatives. They have to make a vote one way or another, up or down, yes or no, vote on that. And it's different than just co-sponsoring a bill. You can do all kinds of Weasley things to say that, to excuse why you might not co-sponsor a bill. Oh, I didn't like certain language in this bill, and so we just have to do this, that, and that. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to, I support other bills. There's a bunch of bills, and no, it's much different when you actually have a vote on the floor of the House. You have to go on record and say, do you support this legislation or not? And so what that could do, in Jimmy Dore's talking about here, is create pressure on those representatives, and encourage progressive challengers to challenge them in 2022, so that we can get more progressives in the House. And if progressives want to leverage their power, this is the way. If they really believe in the progressive movement, he's saying, use your leverage right now when you have it, because this is the last time you're going to have this leverage for the next 2 years. There's not going to be another moment. We really need to recognize that the left doesn't really have another moment where they're going to have this kind of leverage. I mean, once they're in there, they're in there. They're solidified. They're locked in for the next few years. And what are the big fights that the left is supposed to win? So without getting too much into it, I'll get to my commentary at the end. I know it's hard for me to hold back right now, but let's take a look at what the response to this was. All right. So first off, let's just take a look, because Justin Jackson, he's a football player for the now Los Angeles Chargers, and he is an outspoken leftist and a really solid leftist. He's made appearances on the Michael Brooks show before. It was the first place that I saw him. He's a solid leftist, and he chimed in on this, actually. And so let's take a look at what he had to say. All right. So first up, let's just take a look at that. All right. Okay, so says here, this is Justin Jackson tweeting out. This is from December 11th. He says, if AOC and the squad don't do what Jimmy Dore has suggested and withhold their vote for Pelosi for speakership unless Medicare for all gets brought to the floor for a vote, they will be revealing themselves. Power concedes nothing without a demand. So Justin Jackson tweets that out. AOC responds. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responds to him. All right. So let's take a look at her response. All right. And she says, AOC says, problem with this idea is that there isn't enough thought given to step 2. The Dem votes aren't there yet. And with a razor thin margin, the Dem no's are greater than margin. So you issue threats, hold your vote, and lose. Then what? If you want to know who's opposed, look at co-sponsor list. All right. So there's a few things that we need to, I want to tackle there. First thing up, I'll just note that Justin Jackson, who has, a fraction of, I think he has 10%. I think he has 100,000 followers. AOC has 1 million followers. Justin Jackson's tweet got 26,000 likes. You can see AOC's got 5,000 likes. So the people seem to have spoken, with their Twitter support already, on which side the people are actually on this. But so the issue with this, with what AOC is saying here is that, so she's saying, my issue with this at least is that, she's suggesting that, just because it's not going to pass, the vote's not going to pass because there's not enough people that would actually vote yes on it. She's saying there's no point in doing this. It's not going to pass. Well, you know what? We already know, it's almost certain that the legislation isn't going to come, isn't actually going to be enacted. It's not going to pass through the Senate. It's not going to pass through the White House. So to say that the issue is that it's not going to pass the vote, it seems almost, like a, something that you can, it's an afterthought almost, because we already know, it's obvious. We know that it's not going to actually become legislation. That's not what progressives are actually talking about doing. What they're talking about is putting the pressure on those representatives to have to cast their vote and go on record with their votes, and then using that as leverage against them in future elections, in future campaigns and elections. And so, the idea that you issue your threats, hold your vote, and lose, then what? She says, just look at the co-sponsor list. Well, the thing about the co-sponsor list is that people like Kamala Harris are on the co-sponsor list. People can co-sponsor it when they don't really believe in it, right? It's much different. And who's looking at co-sponsor lists? It's much easier for somebody to write an attack ad when you've cast a vote against this. Like, we always talk about people's votes on, you always talk about people's votes historically, politicians' votes, because that's their record. That's what matters. And so that's where people are actually will focus more of their attention, and it just grabs more headlines. So Benjamin Dixon had a response to this. I don't have the response here, but Benjamin Dixon's response to this was essentially that he felt that, there were cases where people have gone on the record on votes. He specified the $15 minimum wage, that there were Democrats that voted against it, and nobody ran attack ads against those Democrats who voted against $15 minimum wage. So why is it that they would be able to successfully run attack ads against Medicare for all? Well, my answer to that is that we're in the middle of a pandemic, a global pandemic, and it seems like it would be a really good idea. And Justin Jackson mentions this somewhere later in the thread, but it seems like it would be a really great idea to get Democrats on record in the middle of a pandemic denying people health care, in the middle of a global pandemic that has killed nearly 300,000 Americans. It seems like that would have a little bit more political power to it than, voting against a symbolic $15 minimum wage bill that we know, again, where did that bill go? It didn't become legislation. We don't have a $15 minimum wage. It was a symbolic bill, and we all knew it at the time. And that stuff just doesn't garner headlines. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People are feeling that. If you catch these people out and show, listen, they don't actually support this, and they don't even support it in the middle of a pandemic. When are these people going to support this? That's what you run on. That's what progressives need. We need to get all of these people on record and run against them on those issues so that we can say, look, that's abhorrent. People, that's visceral, and people feel that. And so, all right, I'm going to try my best not to get too much into my analysis on this just yet. I want to try to take you through all of the little responses, and then we'll really dive in. But AOC here is suggesting, oh no, there's other things that we can fight for here. She says, in contrast, you can use leverage to push for things that can happen and change lives, i.e. a $15 minimum wage vote in the first 100 days, doable. Elevating longtime progressive champions to important positions of leadership, also doable. Listen, those things aren't bad. Like, I want all of that, but there's nothing that says that that's all that we can get. There's no reason that that's all that we can get. And I mean, the idea of a $15 minimum wage being some sort of success, that's almost laughable to me. I don't have the clip ready right now, but during the debates, one of Biden's best moments during the debates was when he strongly came out in support of a $15 minimum wage and said that he would fight to make that legislation. So why in the world, why would you need to use political leverage or political capital? Why do you need to spend political capital pushing for something that that Biden and Pelosi, nominally at least, already support? You don't need leverage there. We don't need leverage on $15 minimum wage. Now getting progressives into positions of power in leadership, yeah, you know what? That's also valuable, but there's nothing saying that that's all that we can get. And if that's all that we get, that's really, really weak. You know, that it's just weak. It's not enough. I'm sorry, but that's not enough. And it's not visceral enough for people to care, to say, you know what, those are people fighting for me. Those are my representatives and they're fighting for me. So let's keep going. Let's see some more of the reaction here. She's, you know, AOC says that's the opportunity cost away. So now she's saying, oh, you know, you got to weigh this opportunity cost. We can't, you know, you got to use your leverage to push for things that that can happen, like the $15 minimum wage. Again, there's no guarantee that $15 minimum wage passes through the Senate and through the House, but there are things that Joe Biden could do to enact that and to fight for that. And there's no reason that can't be done alongside pushing for Medicare for all and getting a Medicare for all vote. You know, we can do it all. We can walk and chew gum. All right. So now there was some more, you know, some more responses to this that I want to get to here. So let's take a look at just, you know, one or two other responses here before we take a look at David Sirota's really thoughtful article that he wrote in response to this. So we'll take a look at what David Sirota suggested next. But let's take a look here first at some of the response, more of the response from liberal Twitter on this. All right. So I actually had to pull this up on another account because it turns out that I'm blocked by this T. Fisher King character who is clearly a neoliberal shill. So I'm proud of that. That's just a mark of honor as far as I'm concerned, to be blocked by T. Fisher King. So T. Fisher King, you know, retweets out this tweet from it's Justin Jackson's original tweet that we just read. And Katie Halper from the Katie Halper Show and Useful Idiots with Matt Taibbi, Katie Halper retweeted Justin Jackson's tweet and said, hard agree. All right. So that's Katie Halper, you know, great leftist, love her work. Love to have her on the show someday or be on her show someday. Invite me on, Katie. And she you know, so she tweets this out, hard agree, to which T. Fisher King retweets and he says, first Glenn Greenwald, then Jimmy Dore, now Katie Halper. More and more of the very white Bernie Sanders left is showing the women of color of the squad, today AOC, that they are really considered, quote, the help to be ordered around. To which, really quickly, Joy-Ann Reid from MSNBC, you know, host, on you know, multi-million-dollar. I know she's got like a multi-million-dollar contract on MSNBC. She hosts the AM Joy show on MSNBC. Joy-Ann Reid replies to T. Fisher King's tweet and says, yup. So she's now saying that, you know, agreeing that Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, Katie Halper, it's all the white Bernie Sanders left that are challenging AOC on this. I mean, just completely ignoring the fact that the original tweet in here is from a black man, Justin Jackson. All right. So this all started with, you know, Justin Jackson, black man, responding, black leftist, saying, listen, I support this. I believe in this. And he's literally got a screenshot of Justin Jackson here, but then turns around and says it's the white left. Now, before they used to just really generalize it even further and say Bernie bros. And if they were all guys that they could have gotten, I'm sure that he would have called them all Bernie bros. But they can't use the Bernie bros that erases the women and the people of color in the Bernie movement and Bernie Sanders, you know, what was called the Bernie Sanders movement or the progressive movement. They want to erase out all of those folks. They want to erase all of us because I'm one of those folks. And that's literally part of why I started the show. Was stuff like this is what got me to start the show, was because I saw that there was this rhetoric on the, you know, from neoliberals and folks that claim to be on the left or progressives, where they often will try to erase out and invisibilize the people of color, the, you know, supporters, the left, you know, people of color on the left and women, just marginalized people on the left, they will try to erase them out and try to make these false claims that the left is just all white men, just totally dominated by white men. It's just all white men, just angry white guys on their computers, tweeting out into the ether. And I want to fight back against that narrative and be able to contest that narrative. And so, that's part of what got me to start the show. So here you have T. Fisher King, and I don't have the tweet, but Brianna Joy Gray actually retweeted this and said, like, look at how they just erase out Justin Jackson. Like, did Joyanne Reed and T. Fisher King just really erase out 200-pound black man Justin Jackson from this and from their analysis? Because it just doesn't. It doesn't fit their narrative, right? They want to have this narrative that it's just white people, right? This is just white people. No, it's not. People of color, or totally agree. Medicare for all would disproportionately, favor communities of color, Black communities, Latino communities, Indigenous communities. We want this. We definitely want this. We absolutely want this. And we want to be heard. And we're tired of people like this trying to erase us out. And they get neoliberals like Joyanne Reed, a Black woman, to do her best. She's so anti-Bernie and she hates the left. And they do whatever they can to try to erase us out. And we have to fight back against this narrative. And part of, making ourselves more known and more visible for Black leftists is to combat this sort of rhetoric and this narrative and stand up and say, no, this is not what we are. This is not who we are, and stop erasing us out. We are here and we want to be heard, and we're tired of being erased. So, so we're going to take a look in a sec at David Sirota's response to all of this, because I think David Sirota had a really great response to all of this. Because honestly, my immediate reaction to this was essentially like, they're not even asking for that much. What they're asking for is nothing actually real, right? There are real things. Like David Dayen has been doing the Lord's work over on the American Prospect. And David Dayen and the American Prospect have been mapping out what they're calling a day one agenda for Joe Biden, where they have found all of these things that Joe Biden could do without even needing to go through Congress. Like, Joe Biden has a path to actually enacting Medicare for all through the ACA, through a provision in the ACA. It would enable him to allow states to expand, to create their own Medicare for all systems, essentially, whenever they're facing public health crises. And guess what? Every state right now is facing a public health crisis in the United States, because we are under, the worst COVID-19 conditions in the entire, world, not just the industrialized world, but just the entire world. America is doing worse than anyone else on, at the rate of COVID deaths. We have 4% of the world's population, 24% of the world's COVID deaths. So, people are hurting right now. Absolutely. And so let's, before, I want to get to David Sirota's great article in response to this. And so let's do that. Let's take a look at how David Sirota's responded to this. And this is great. This is important too, because David Sirota, for those that aren't familiar with him, an amazing investigative journalist. He was also Bernie Sanders' speechwriter. Brianna Joy Gray was, of course, Bernie Sanders' national press secretary during his 2020 campaign. So these are people that are really, held powerful positions in the progressive movement and the Bernie Sanders campaign. And I think that they have access to a certain amount of information that even the general public didn't have access to during the campaign. And also they are just prominent voices on the left that I think stand out and, we should highlight. So let's take a look at what David Sirota has suggested in response to all of this. All right. And thank you so much to everyone watching right now. If you haven't done so already, I forgot to say this at the beginning, but please hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. You need to be subscribed. Support independent Black left media by sharing this video out on social media wherever you can. And also, if you can afford to do so, we really need your support. The show can't continue to exist without the help, the grassroots support of folks like yourself. So please support us if you can afford to do so by leaving us either a one-time tip or a recurring donation on Ko-fi patreon.com/radical democracy. Links are in the description box below. If you're on Patreon, you can also find us on Patreon and support us over there as well. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Again, links are in the description box below, and we really, really need your support. So please help us out, hook us up. As low as $1. $1, you can drop a one-time donation, $1, or as low as $1 a month. And that support is critical to keeping this show going and keeping content like this flowing. So please support independent media, support independent Black left media. Deeply appreciate that. And thank you to all of our existing Patreon and Coffee supporters. Appreciate you all. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at this article from, we're going to take a look at an article from David Sirota in response to this, controversy, essentially, and responding to talk. He's going to talk about some things that the left could push for, substantive things that the left might be able to push for, beyond just a vote on Medicare for all. All right, so this was published in Jacobin magazine on December 14th. Article by David Sirota titled 5 Things House Progressives Can Do to Advance Medicare for All. So, he says forcing a House floor vote on Medicare for all isn't a bad idea, but we should prioritize wielding power over engaging in spectacles. And there are several steps progressive lawmakers like AOC can take to substantively shift power toward Medicare for all supporters. All right. So a little picture of the squad there. So let's take a look at the 5 things that David Sirota has laid out, that he says 5 substantive things that the left should be pushing for, in addition to the Medicare for all, enforcing the Nancy Pelosi's hand with this House Speaker vote. So this is what David Sirota, again, former speechwriter for Bernie Sanders and great investigative reporter. You can find him. He has his own Substack, The Daily Poster, and he does work. This article is published in Jacobin. All right. So the first thing that David Sirota suggests that we could be pushing for is to remove the Medicare for all opponent who chairs the key committee. So this is actually something near and dear to me. The current chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, which is one of the key panels overseeing Medicare for all proposals, is Representative Richie Nail, who has played a singularly destructive role on behalf of his healthcare industry and Wall Street donors. He opposes Medicare for all, and recently he has tried to water down surprise billing legislation in the middle of a pandemic. Pelosi can remove Neal as the panel's chairman, and next in line in seniority is Representative Lloyd Doggett, who is a much more progressive lawmaker. All right. Richie Nail Alex Morse ran against Richie Nail. We had a chance to unseat him. Really, it's a damn shame what happened to Alex Morse. Hopefully he will run again to unseat this, corrupt, corporatist Richie Nail. He takes more donations than any other member of Congress. He takes more corporate impact donations than any other member of Congress. And he chairs a very powerful committee that handles the budget and is who just gets to decide what legislation actually ends up getting funded. So he says, okay, you can remove the opponent who chairs that committee. Nancy Pelosi has the power to do so. All right. Next up, he says, schedule a vote on existing legislation to let states create single-payer healthcare systems. So he talks about how Representative Ro Khanna has authored legislation empowering the Health and Human Services Secretary to approve waivers to states that want to create their own Medicare for all programs. As we previously reported, incoming HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra has been an outspoken supporter of Medicare for all and has said he supports efforts to pass such programs in states, including in his home state of California, which recently considered such legislation. Unlike Medicare for all legislation, which is unfortunately probably still doomed to defeat right now, Khanna's bill may actually have a shot at immediately passing the House and putting Becerra on the spot to deliver on his past rhetoric. An additional bonus, his bill could also humiliate Republican opponents who so often claim to support devolving power to states, but whose votes against the proposal will expose their hypocrisy. Okay, so this is kind of a two-sided thing. We can put pressure on Xavier Becerra, who claims he has nominally supported Medicare for all, Now, of course, there are reports in the New York Times and the Washington Post that came out as soon as, things, he was nominated by Biden to run the HHS as the HHS Human and Health Services Secretary. Progressives rejoiced. Oh, this is a Medicare for all proponent. But then shortly after that, articles came out. I believe it was actually the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Articles came out where they reported that Becerra, in order to get this job in the Biden administration, had to already agree with Biden that he will not push for Medicare for all. So that was part of him getting this gig. So I highly doubt that this is going to happen, that he would actually that he would go forward with it. But this would really hold his feet to the fire. This would give him no excuse here. So that would be a real great way to actually call him on it and see if he actually supports what he claims to support. All right. Third up, David Sirota says, schedule a vote on a resolution demanding Biden use executive authority to expand Medicare. So this is the what I was mentioning before about David Dane's work and the American Prospect. So he says, schedule a vote on a resolution demanding Biden use executive authority to expand Medicare. So the American Prospect has reported that thanks to provisions in the Affordable Care Act, President Joe Biden will have the unilateral executive authority to expand Medicare coverage during the pandemic. The House can pass a resolution demanding that he immediately take this action. A resolution like this should be a no-brainer. This is such a no-brainer, y'all. Joe Biden has, through a provision in the ACA that everybody says the ACA is so amazing, we just have to fight to protect the ACA. Okay, well, the ACA does something great here. It has a great provision in it that says that the president can use their executive authority to expand Medicare in any, region that is facing a health crisis, a public health crisis. Well, again, like we said, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Every single region in this country is facing a public health crisis. And, therefore, Joe Biden has the power day one to actually essentially implement Medicare for all by simply using his executive authority and that provision in the ACA to pass Medicare in all, across the country, essentially. So, in a sense, this would allow all of those states, every single state, it would be viable here to pass Medicare. So that's a big one, a major one. And next up, he says, number 4, he says, is include provisions in year-end spending bills that create a presidential commission charged with crafting a Medicare for all program. So he says President Barack Obama created a commission to cut Social Security. Progressives can flip the script and create a commission charged with evaluating other countries' universal healthcare systems and coming up with proposals to guarantee healthcare to all Americans. Granted, this is what Congress exists to do, but forcing a Democratic administration to come up with proposals could also advance the cause by pushing the executive branch to take the concept seriously. So this one is a little bit less, potent, I believe, but it still holds a lot of value here, right? And Obama did it, right? Obama created the commission to cut Social Security. If we're really progressive here, we should definitely be able to create a commission to evaluate universal healthcare programs around the world, right? These things already exist. They in heterogeneous countries and communities, and so there's no excuse here. There's no excuse for this. All right. So that was number 4. Last one, number 5. He says David Sirota suggests that to author a discharge petition to force a vote on Medicare for all. So a discharge petition is designed to let rank and file members of the House circumvent normal rules and committee procedures to force a floor vote on an issue. Creating a discharge petition on Medicare for all would help clarify who actually supports the program and who is merely co-sponsoring Medicare for all legislation as a performative but empty gesture. All right. So this is a way for the rank and file members. You don't have to be a committee head or chairperson. You can just be a rank and file congressperson. And by creating this discharge petition on Medicare for all, it would force a clarification on who actually supports Medicare for all and who's just co-sponsoring it because they know it plays well in politics, right? It's there's a political benefit to it. All right. So, what David Sirota has laid out here is a substantive policy and strategy really that the Democrats could fight on. And he's saying, listen, still fight for the floor vote for the Medicare for all. We should be fighting for all of this on top of the floor vote for Medicare for all. And we should start from a position of, trying to demand everything that we really want, that we think is even remotely plausible. We should make all of those demands, come to the table with a list of demands and not just one singular, pretty much performative demand, because a House vote on Medicare for all is largely performative. It's not going to get people Medicare for all. Let's be real. A House vote on Medicare for all does not get Americans Medicare for all. It does not expand, healthcare access to Americans. What does expand healthcare access to Americans is what David Sirota has laid out here. Really, the number one thing to me is what he said in step 3 is, forcing, Joe Biden to, creating a House resolution that forces Joe Biden to use his executive authority to exercise that provision in the ACA and provide Medicare to all states, right? So, this is something that these are substantive things that we could fight for. And if we're really trying to use our leverage and negotiate properly, what David Sirota is saying is that the left and progressives, we have this thing where we're so used to losing and to not winning and getting things in our lifetimes that we're stuck in the position of almost just having these big fights for largely performative measures, right? This is a House, the House vote on Medicare for all is pretty much performative. I'm sorry to say it doesn't, again, I talked about why I think that it would benefit progressives, right? It would put people on the record. It would put Democrats on the record, and it would open the door for progressive challengers in 2022 to those, to any Democrat that didn't support Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, you literally think about those ads, folks, right? Like, here's your legislator, your representative said you don't deserve health care in the middle of a pandemic that is killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. In less than a year, we've had nearly 300,000 Americans dead. In less than a year, over 3,000 Americans died in a single day. That was more than 9/11. That's more than what died in 9/11 and in a single day. And so where is our 9/11 level of response to this issue? Look at how we responded to 9/11. We got ourselves into never-ending wars. We all became patriots and jingoistic patriots, and we all started beating the war drums, and we marched off to war that have now gone on for 18, 19 years now. And with no end in sight, trillions of dollars poured into this, millions of lives lost, what did we gain from that, right? What did we gain? Some false sense of safety and security? Does anyone really feel any safer, any more secure in their lives because of our so-called war on terror and all these, the nearly $1 trillion military budgets that we have every year? Here, my thought on this is we should absolutely be pushing the Democrats, Justin Jackson, Jimmy Dore. They are 100% correct in this, and the left should stand behind them, united behind them, and all be pushing in the same direction to say, this is our demands. We want this. This is what we want. I think TYT held like a poll, did like a poll somewhere where people voted overwhelmingly in favor of pushing Pelosi in this way, using the, Jimmy Dore strategy. They're calling it the Dore strategy. I'm fine with that, and this was a really good, this was a good strategy put forth by Jimmy Dore. And it sucks that our members of Congress are resisting this, and people that we consider progressives, right? Like AOC, just pushing back and saying, oh no, we gotta wait. We're doing stuff behind closed doors. Don't worry, we're doing stuff. You guys you're not smart enough to see. You're not smart enough to understand. Let the politicians handle it. You all just go home. Don't worry. Don't go stirring up the pot or anything like that. We got this. We've gained nothing. We have no power. What is the left going to win in the next 2 years, 4 years? What is the left plan to win, electorally in Congress? Where do we think our wins are? Again, like she's saying that, we got to save up this political capital for a $15 minimum wage. Why? Joe Biden already supports a $15 minimum wage. There's no way to push him on that. He does not support Medicare for all. That is something that he must be pushed on. He does not need to be pushed on $15 minimum wage unless he's just a bald-faced liar. We can play clips of him in the debates, adamantly supporting and championing, $15 minimum wage. It's about damn time, even though we all know what really happened with the minimum wage under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. When they came into power in 2008, 2009, when they were inaugurated, the minimum wage was $7.25. When they left in 2017 and Trump took office, the minimum wage was $7.25, the federal minimum wage. So they didn't touch it. All right. So the idea that Joe Biden is some fighter for raising the minimum wage, he's not. But he claimed during this election campaign that was one of the few, progressive claims that he made. And so we can hold him on that. We can hold him to that, right? We don't need, where's this political capital being spent? If not now, then when, AOC? If we don't do it now, then when? Where's our leverage? They did the same thing. This is the same move that I see AOC making. They did the same thing during the campaign, right? They didn't use their leverage, right? They didn't use their leverage during the campaign. They said they immediately, as soon as Bernie dropped out of the race, AOC and the squad and all these people, they just handed over their vote to Joe Biden. They said, nope, we're going to vote blue no matter who. We don't, we gotta vote for Joe Biden because Donald Trump is just so much worse. We can't challenge him right now. We can't fight him. We can't criticize him right now. We can't even criticize him right now. We got to keep all of our focus on defeating Trump, right? And so we're going to give up our leverage now. They told black people, I have videos that I've covered on this. They told black people, give up your leverage, black people, all the leverage that you have, because we got Democrats across the line in so many states. I mean, we got, it was black folks that won this thing for Joe Biden in South Carolina. Really not the same, it's older black folks. It's a different kind of, more liberal mindset, not leftist, not black leftist, but there's a black, there's a significant portion of the black community, especially older black folks, that are still liberal, neoliberal, and they got them across the line. Black, young voters came out in droves and supported Joe Biden, because they felt like he would be better for the climate. So these people, but that was the problem, is that we handed over that leverage and we didn't get any concessions. We didn't demand, Ice Cube tried to get, Joe Biden to come to the table and Kamala Harris to come to the table and to just talk about this, to try to put forth a black agenda. And they laughed at them essentially and told them, we'll talk after the election. Where's that gone? What's happening with that? Where's the black agenda? So far what I've seen from Joe Biden is him put, he said, I'm going to do a segment on Michael Eric Dyson, that cooning out there for Joe Biden. And he puts a black Secretary of Defense or up Lloyd Austin, who's a former Raytheon board member, and so he worked for one of the biggest military contractors and is a general, a lifelong general. So this is just it's the worst kind of neoliberal warmongering garbage. And then you're not even supposed to have a military person in that post. They're gonna have to have get a special permission, authorization from Congress to have a military person there, because it's supposed to be a post held by a civilian. You do not want military people holding these posts, because we just end up in more forever wars. But they're like, hey, the bombers are going to be black and women this time. All right. And, and trans and gay. And so we're going to, we're still going to blow up, we're still going to blow up your hospitals, but it'll be, rainbow colored, drones that are dropping those bombs. So that's essentially what Joe Biden has pushed forward. So, and we didn't use our leverage before the election to demand things like this. That's when we should have been making these demands already, right? It was, this stuff was should have been obvious to us back then, right? And we were taught, that you'll see me on record back then saying we should be using our leverage right now. Black people need to leverage their vote right now. Young people need to leverage their vote right now. Progressives need to leverage their vote right now and say, we will not vote for you. We're not going to vote for Donald Trump. But until you concede to our demands, at least some of our demands, we will not hand over our vote. But they did not do that. They didn't do that then, and they're not doing it right now. And I see the same thing. And they didn't do it then, and look what happened. They didn't get any concessions before the election. Look what happened. Joe Biden has staffed his administration, but nothing but neoliberal, Obama 2.0, just capitalist neoliberal ghouls, right? And that's what he staffed his whole administration with. Neera Tanden, like we said, Lloyd Austin, you know the list of them. We've covered them all. He floated Rahm Emanuel. He just put Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is the transportation secretary now. So that news just dropped a few hours ago. So it's just a big fat middle finger to the progressives to the left since he's become the president elect. So why would we use that same strategy again? Don't leverage your vote before the vote's already up. That's how politics works. And we got to start using politics and using our power here on the left and learning how politics works. That's just basic negotiation in business, right? Like, let's be real here. You don't go to a negotiation with your final position as your starting position. You don't want to go to a negotiation, for your salary. And if you want $100,000, you don't go to them and ask for 100. You ask for 120, and you let them work their way down to 100. Maybe you end up with 110, but you let them work their way down there, right? You don't start from 100 because then you're going to get your work. Then they're going to work their way down, start negotiating from that position, right? You got to come with a bigger list of demands, and then maybe you demand all these things that David Sirota laid out. And maybe you get one of them. Maybe you just get the Medicare for all vote. But at least you got the one, right? I don't even see them getting the one. We're not even going to get the one. Let's I think that about does it for my rant. Do we want to take some comments maybe before we close this out? I want to keep it to an hour, so let's, for the last 10 minutes here, just take some comments. We're going to do another live segment where we're going to do another episode sort of. We're experimenting for everyone too. By the way, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like button down below. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. Support independent media. Support independent Black left media. Share this out on social media. And if you can afford to do so, please do us a favor and support the show for as low as $1. You can support us on Coffee at ko-fi.com/radical democracy. And you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/radical democracy. If you're already on Patreon, we prefer the support on Coffee because we just get more of the funds through there. So if you can support us and you want to support us more directly, please support us through Coffee. But if you're already on Patreon, use Patreon. Thank you to all of our existing Patreon and Coffee members for your support. Links are in the description box below as well. So you can open up that description box, just scroll to the bottom of the description box. You'll see links in the description box there. All right. So hit those links and support the show. Seriously, if you're on the left and you gotta start, if you can afford it, only if you can afford it. If we're on the left, we gotta start showing solidarity, building mutual aid, and supporting independent left media, in particular independent Black left media. You guys need us on the left. I'm telling you, you need Black left media so that we can come out here and we can be a shield against this bullshit identity politics that they play. They will try to weaponize identity politics against the left unless we have Black leftists, women leftists, Black women leftists, trans leftists, marginal indigenous leftists, marginalized groups that can stand up and say, no. You don't get to play the weaponized identity politics with us. We're going to use our identity to be a shield to our comrades on the left, to our white comrades, to our Latino comrades, to our indigenous comrades, whoever we can, so that we can shield them and say, no. It's not racist. It's not sexist. It's not racist to be trying to challenge your representatives. That's exactly what you should be doing. So we're experimenting. By the way, we're just experimenting with some different show formats, and so we're probably going to cut this live stream and then do a separate live stream on a separate topic. Jennifer Rubin's just gross article that talks about how terrible the Biden administration is, but she doesn't realize, and how terrible Joe Biden is, but she does it thinking that she's like saying nice things about him. It's amazing. So we'll do that next. Any comments we want to get to before we roll out and do that next segment? And I think it's Ruben with an I. I don't know. No, it's E. Okay. All right. What's up? Yep. What's up, Vanguard? Thank you so much. Corey Saylor says co-sponsor don't mean jack. Kamala co-sponsored Medicare for all until it became inconvenient. A vote matters. Absolutely. 100%. Samurai Jack says, what do you say to people who say if it does not pass, the optics will look bad for Medicare for all? No, I don't. Listen, the optics, to me, the optics look bad, will look the same for Medicare for all, whether it passes that or not. What it does is it says it doesn't look bad for Medicare for all. It looks bad for those legislators that should support it. You're saying we want to provide healthcare to everybody in the middle of a pandemic when it keeps everybody safer, right? Like, I want everybody to have healthcare, not just myself. I need all my neighbors. We can't tie our healthcare to employers when tens of millions of Americans just lost their jobs and got kicked off of their health insurance in the middle of a pandemic. So I understand your point, and I understand the reservation there, but I don't. What I would say is that the optics will look much worse for the Democrats that vote against it in the middle of a pandemic than it will look for Medicare for all as a whole. Honestly, the people support Medicare for all, and I don't think it's going to take a big hit because it didn't pass the House. You know what? If it doesn't get a vote, it doesn't pass the House either. And that would look bad for Medicare for all. People can just say, look, Democrats are in power and they're not even willing to vote on Medicare for all. That looks bad to me too. So, they can use that against us either way. I think what's much more substantive and effective is getting people on record to vote and then using that against those folks. Or you never know. Maybe we push and we fight and we get enough people to actually vote yes in favor of it and we pass it through the House. Who knows, But if we don't get a vote, we can't even try. And Democrats have been in power for 4 years under Donald Trump and haven't even voted on Medicare on universal health care as Democrats. We got to get them on record. More comments? Samurai Jack says, if Democrats in Congress vote against Medicare for all, they can just do a voice vote so they are not on record. What do you say about that? One, I'm pretty sure we can still. I know what you mean by the voice vote. I'm sort of familiar, but I'm not like, I don't know every little bit about the procedural things inside of Congress, but from what I understand, you can secure an actual vote on this where you have to give, your individual yay or nay vote on this. You demand that it not be a voice vote, that they do a roll call. I know that we can do that in state legislatures. We can, any member of our state house in Massachusetts can call for what's called a roll call and force every other member of Congress to go on record. I don't know if they have something similar in Congress, but I would hope that there was something that, some provision there that they could use, some rule that they could use to force a written vote on this issue. But I'd love to hear more. I'll definitely look into that and check more on that, Samurai Jack. So a good point by Samurai Jack. But it is one that I believe, from everything that I understand, there's a way to get people on record with this vote, and to demand that the vote be held in a way that we can get them on vote. And I think Corey Saylor is responding to that there and says that, part of the deal is that it has to be a recorded vote. Yeah, we make it part of the deal. It says we want a recorded vote. We don't want a voice vote, and make that a part of the deal. So absolutely, I think that's mandatory for me. It has to go on record. So you demand as a part of the deal that it be a recorded vote. No weaseling out of it. Samurai Jack says, is Jennifer Rubin a centrist? She sounds familiar. Yeah, she hates Bernie Sanders, and she just writes all this terrible, like, she really hates Bernie Sanders. And so she's done a bunch just like shitting on Bernie Sanders and the progressive left. And so she is a neoliberal centrist to the core. And just wait till you see this article that she wrote. It's amazing. I mean, she thinks she's writing nice stuff about Biden, but it's absolutely like it just says everything that we need to know about Biden and his administration. X says, right on, Kamali, tell it. Thank you. What's up, X? Love to see you. Appreciate everyone for being here. All of our regulars for chat and for commenting. Thank you so much. All right. I think that we're going to X says, thanks for all your hard work. Thank you all. Thanks to all of y'all for just showing up and participating. We're trying to do more. We got a great interview with Professor Christian Chun coming out on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be premiering it. You can see you can set a reminder for it if you check out our channel. It's posted right now and set to be premiered. We'll do a live premiere where I'll be in the live chat on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Check that out. It's a really great interview. Honestly, it's kind of our first interview here. I think we've had the Vanguard as guest on the show, but that was more like having a guest on versus an interview. This is like a pre-recorded interview. So definitely check that out. I had a lot of fun editing it, and I think it really came out really great. And Professor Chun is just a really insightful, dude, and it was a really great conversation. So definitely check that out. All right. Corey Saylor says, every Dem that just lost their seat was openly against Medicare for all. Dems will be keeping that in mind if they're forced to vote on it. If they vote no, we get to hit them with it for the next 2 years. Absolutely, Corey, 100%. Great point. We just saw that the people that supported Medicare for all, they won their primaries. Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, Cori Bush. Cori Bush actually supported defund the police. So everyone's saying, oh, you can't win on defund the police. She was the only person outright speaking about defund the police in support of it, and she won her election, a long shot election. She won it, and all these people that didn't say anything about defund the police, they lost their election. So what does that say about defund the police? Whatever, I won't have that conversation now. But yeah, everyone who supported Medicare for all, they won their elections, they won the generals, and a whole bunch of people, a bunch of blue dog Democrats that were against it, lost. So what does that tell you? All right, great point, Corey. Really great point. And we just get to hold them to that for the next few years. All right. So X says an interview. Awesome. Yes, it is awesome. It was a really great interview. Samurai Jack says, if AOC and the squad does not vote for Pelosi, they are risking a Republican winning Speaker of the House. What do you say about that? Great point. This is what leverage means. It means you have to be willing to, what does Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House get progressives? Let's be real. What has happened for 4 years with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House? What has happened with the Republican as Speaker of the House? They just get to decide which bills come up and what gets voted on. It doesn't matter. It's not like they can then pass Republican legislation through the House and the Senate. It would get vetoed by the time it hit Joe Biden's desk anyways. But also, what are we getting out of a Nancy Pelosi led House right now? We've gotten nothing. Progressives have gotten nothing with Nancy Pelosi at the helm. So I'm not afraid of that. I personally am not afraid. If that's what we have to threaten, then as Corey Saylor says, so be it. Like, exactly. You got to take the risk, right? You got to be willing. You got to be willing to put it on the table, and you got to be willing to take that risk, because if they're not, that's the leverage. That's your leverage. And are they really going to risk? Will Nancy Pelosi risk letting a Republican take the Speaker of the House? It would be an embarrassment, a shame on her legacy if she allowed that to happen. So this is how you hold your politicians accountable. And we got to start doing it at some point, right? AOC talking about it's got to be later. It'll never come. It'll never happen, right? I saw something out that, people in the Biden administration were suggesting, just play nice for the next 6 to 8 months, and then we'll start to work with you. Jesus Christ, 6 to 8 months is when the midterm campaigns are going to start. That's when they're going to turn around and tell you can't talk about this stuff anymore. We got to be careful. The Republicans are going to take control of the House if we support any of this crazy radical progressive legislation that the whole country supports. It's popular amongst the whole country. They'll still find a way to say that you can't support it then. So we have to be willing to make that demand and to take that risk. If that's what if the Democrats are willing to do that, then that's on them. If they care more about fighting against Medicare for all than fighting against Republicans, let that go on the record. Let that be known, and we will use that against them in their primaries. Nancy Pelosi has a challenger, Shahid Buttar, who's been floating around. He responded in this thread. He's been floating around a potential run for Congress. Shahid, I got to get you on the show. We got to get Shahid Buttar on the show to come chat about Nancy Pelosi and all of this hoopla here. So we'll hopefully that's one of our next interviews that we do. Corey Saylor says, let the Republicans win. That way, next time we demand something, they know we're serious. The third time, we won't have to demand anymore. They'll just assume it. Exactly. Seriously. And I don't see, there's no real substantive downside to a Republican Speaker of the House. nothing is passing. Nothing that passes through the House that's a progressive bill is going to pass through a Republican-controlled Senate anyways. And let's be real, Joe Biden's not that progressive. He's not going to pass any really progressive legislation. Samurai Jack says, this is kind of like the debate over Biden or Trump. Who would you rather fight? Yeah. There's the thing is, it's not about who you fight with the Speaker of the House. There's just, I don't, there's no difference to me between fighting Nancy Pelosi and whichever Republican ends up. X says whoever wins, the same group of people benefit, the rich. Absolutely. 100% agree that it just, and Corey says we must have the courage to lose. Totally agree with that sentiment that we just, what we're talking about is that what's the worst case scenario? Republican takes over the Speaker of the House. I don't care anymore. I would actually rather fight the Republican than Nancy Pelosi. At least with the Republican, you get outraged because they're Republican, right? When it's Nancy Pelosi, people kind of go to sleep. The liberals say you can't push, you can't fight against her. Don't do that. You're gonna cause too much, controversy, too much infighting. Just leave it alone. Wait till we have 100% control over every chamber of Congress and every branch of the government, and then we can finally pass progressive legislation. But that's why the progressives keep losing. We're not willing to fight, into make these demands and to fight on these grounds, and we have to be more willing to fight. All right. To everyone that hasn't done so already, please hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and share this video out far and wide. We're going to wrap things up here. But one last time, if you can afford to do so, please support the show. Coffee.com/radical democracy and patreon.com/radical democracy. Links are in the description box below. We need your support. Independent media. We right now have our funding is less than $100 a month right now. All right. Help us at least get to $100 a month and hopefully far beyond that. All right. Support the show, support independent Black left media on Coffee and Patreon. Links are in the description box below. Check out our next episode, whatever we're calling these right now. We're experimenting with this format. We're going to have one coming up soon. It's not going to be 12:15 because it's 12:15 right now. So it's going to be 12:30. We'll do 12:30 and we're going to do the segment on Jennifer Rubin